And let's see, man. It's such, like I said, such a big deal. Who gets those good card draws early on? And the Innervate already there in one hand, and we do see that is Kungen's hand, so he has that Innervate. Is he going to be able to get some other cards to go along with that? Okay, so he has Swipe, Innervate, Druid of the Claw, and we get an Innervate Mark plus a coin. I mean, do you want? I mean, if you're Savitz here, do you think you coin Innervate out the Sen'jin, or you just hold that? I mean, do you think you wait for the Karin to do a coin Innervate Karin on turn 3?
A lot of plays have become available with an opening hand like this.
I mean, it seems like
Sen'jin is actually the kind of card that even though you can turn one Innervate it, with a hand like this, you don't want to turn one Innervate it.
I mean,
and the
Karin
reason is
so
because
strong.
you have Karin in your hand, so he can actually play a turn 3 Karin with this Innervate and this coin.
Yeah.
So if he had not drawn that Karin, I think you may have seen a different play. But as it stands right now, it's going to be really difficult, I think, to not justify playing Karin.
Okay, well, interesting.
But this play, what he's going for with this play, is I actually kind of like it now that I look at it.
Because he gets another Sen'jin next turn, and the turn after that, he can just coin out the Karin.
Exactly, and he also wants to start applying pressure in the event his opponent has something like a Druid of the Claw. So what you're going to see here instead is you're going to see Mark of the Wild, and you're going to see a hero power. And this is why I like this play so much, is because now he has a 5/3. So his opponent, if it has Wrath, he's going to be forced to Wrath it. He takes a few points of damage, but now that's a free card he's basically gotten at this point.
Yeah, and I mean, honestly, in this sort of a Rampart Druid versus Rampart Druid matchup, it's much more about board control than hero HP. You know, it's not really that big of a deal to lose 5 HP this early on.
And these players playing really quickly as well, almost no thought to these turns.
Yeah, I mean, they're confident. And I mean, it's interesting seeing the Wild Growths in their hand at this point. I mean, do you think you go for the Starfall here and just clear that?
This is a spot where I think that Mark of the Wild
now, do you go Wild Growth
literally
here,
have changed the outcome of this game, because before he was going to have to play Starfall to do this, but now what you're looking at is he's going to be getting his Ragnaros down a turn earlier because of what's just happened. So a second Keeper of the Grove, that's also a pretty critical draw, because he was going to probably be needing to use Keeper of the Grove this turn to deal with this 5/3, but now he also has a second one to deal with this Karin that's coming out.
Yeah, that is very nice. But, you know, at the same time, it's kind of interesting seeing these Wild Growths come at this point, because it's like, you know, the Wild Growths aren't super useful at this point, honestly. You know, it's like, you know, when you're already at 8 mana, do you start thinking about holding the Wild Growths for card draws? I mean, you know, he can get out the Cenarius next turn, obviously, and I think that's why he was going to play that one Wild Growth there, because he can obviously get the Cenarius out and buff out both those keepers. But at what turn do you start thinking about holding Wild Growths for card draw?
I think it's a big consideration. Almost any way you slice it, you can go one way or the other. But in this position, he wants to use at least one of them because he wants this Cenarius to come down next turn.
For sure.
And so I'm actually a little bit surprised that he's choosing to use this Druid of the Claw if he does, because this is a pretty good spot to play this Ragnaros. I'd say. Your opponent has just used Wild Growth, so it's indicated that he has something like Cenarius in his hand. And I think you want to start clearing out this board or developing a huge threat to force your opponent to deal with.
Yeah, I agree.
And I mean, now the other issue is, what mode do you put this Druid in?
I feel like Catform, I mean, it's the guaranteed trade, and I mean, that's what he's going to go for. It's a free trade. The minion's still left on the board, and he has to worry about that. So Starfall coming out, I mean, what does it really do? Nothing for him here. And it looks like he is just going to go with the Cenarius with those Treants. And next turn, he is going to be able to draw with the Wild Growth. He does obviously have Swipe and Starfall available, so he has a lot of board clear. So
Ancient Allure as well.
Yeah, I mean, that is pretty nice. You know, if Savitz kind of plays too many minions at this point, it could get a little bit sketchy. But it looks like he is just going to actually Starfall those 2 taunts. And now, I mean, after Starfalling 2 taunts, I think you have to still just kind of
This ends up being a huge turn for Savitz, because not only does he get to reuse this 4/2 for 4 more damage, but the board is still very heavily in his favor. And he's also still got the Ragnaros and an Ancient of Lore. Going over to Kungen's hand, however, this is a pretty empty hand. Ancient of War, though, that's a pretty big draw. That might be able to turn things around for him.
But with the Ragnaros in hand, I mean, the Ragnaros in hand's still there. That he has to worry about that, you know? I mean, he is going to go for the card draw. I think this makes sense. I mean, you have to play that, but
I think you definitely lead with this Wild Growth.
Yeah, you have to. I mean, see what you can get, because the Ancient of War is the obvious play here. He's going to get the Healing Touch, which isn't really going to help him.
That's not what he wants to see right now. That's for sure.
Actually,
about Starfall.
Maybe.
Ooh, I very much disagree with that.
Yeah,
I think you have to play this Ancient of War. If your opponent has Black Knight at this point, you're going to lose the game.
Yeah.
Almost regardless of what happens.
Yeah.
Unless he intends to play this Ancient of War in Corehound mode.
Yeah, I mean, he just doesn't have anything. He has to play it. I mean, at this point, it's just kind of hope and a prayer.
I don't like this play at all. I think this is strictly a mistake. I think you have to get this 5/10 down and start leveraging its 5 power to be able to win the game. Because what ends up happening when you use this removal spell is that your opponent's just going to play more big minions. So when your opponent plays another big minion, you're in the exact same spot you were last turn, except you don't have a minion on the board. So the only thing that's happened is you've given your opponent the chance to develop how they see fit, and then they also get to deal you a few points of damage. So again, finding himself in almost the exact same scenario he was last turn, except he has a random card from his deck instead of a swipe in his hand.
Now, I mean, it's looking like he is going to go for the Ancient of War. Now, I mean, how do you feel about that versus, say, you know, the Starfall to kill that Ancient of War?
I think again, in referring to sort of the last turn, he needs to play this Ancient of War because he has to get something going. If he doesn't get efficient minions on the board, he's never going to be able to recover the situation because his opponent's going to continue to just rain down big efficient minions.
Yeah, I mean, he can just trade the 2/3 now into that. So either one the Ragnaros hits is huge. I mean, you want the Ragnaros to hit that 5/8. If it does, it's okay.
Right, and again, the same situation coming in where Ragnaros hitting either one of those he's okay with because he's starting to get low on life total. And ooh, Mark of the Wild, that's actually
really big.
That's a blessing and a curse at this point. He doesn't know it. Savitz has got Big Game Hunter in his hand. So even if this Ancient of War manages to survive, it's going to get Big Game Hunter from that Mark of the Wild, but he's got to make something happen.
I mean, what do you think here? Do you think you trade, I mean, you could trade the Ancient of War into the Ancient of War and then heal it back up or something like that. You could do that and then put down the Sunwalker. I mean, do you Starfall and then try to go for the face? Do you Starfall and then try to buff up and kill the Rag? I mean, what kind of things what kind of plays should we be looking at
I think
here?
you've got to put this 5/8. I think you've got to put this 5/8 into the 5/5.
Yeah.
And then I think you play Sunwalker, and I don't think you heal the 5/10.
No.
Because it doesn't really matter that much at this point.
Even if you can get it, yeah. Well,
because if
that would put it above Ragnaros kill though.
Well, he can just use his hero power to put a point onto it. So the 5 points of damage that he can effectively deal with this healing touch, I don't think matters that much. I think you're going to be counting on Ragnaros to be hitting this Sunwalker on his backswing, or maybe even hitting you and then using the healing touch to negate that 8 points of damage it dealt.
Okay.
As it stands, I don't like this play because, again, he's going to go for the Mark of the Wild play, which feels safer to him because he hasn't been Black Knighted yet, but he wasn't taking into consideration Big Game Hunter.
Yeah.
And so...
I mean, at the same time, he's in a bad spot. He has to make a play here, right? You know, it's like, kind of have to make a risky move. He's going to trade into that Rag. He's going to.
I think he's realizing now that he's put it at the 7 power mark for Big Game Hunter, and that's going to do it.
Oh, no.
Savitz with the reverse all kill. 2 swipes with that Innervate's going to be enough, and just enough at that.
Oh, man, that is brutal for Kungin. But Savitz, he's able to pull it off, man. He is going to be able to do it, and very well played. Takes 3 straight wins with the Druid deck. You know, he's got to be sweating a little bit after that one, but he pulls it